Calling all educators, students, and space enthusiasts. The 2025 Small Sat Education Conference is where the future of space begins. Join us at the Kennedy Space Center for hands-on workshops, expert speakers, and industry networking, all focused on bringing small sat innovation into the classroom. Explore CubeSats, high-altitude balloon missions, and hands-on STEM workshops designed to launch the next generation of space explorers. Don't miss this chance to connect, learn, and innovate. Visit smallsateducation.org to register today. You can find a link in the show notes. Let's go to space, blue sky learning, episode 152. Inspiring generations across the globe. Today, Kevin meets with Melissa Sleeper. She is a nationally board certified teacher, currently teaching life science and space science at Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy in Melbourne, Florida. A career changer, Melissa has worked as an agricultural economist and statistician, setting up crop reporting services and running rural household surveys. She's lived and taught in both public and private schools in Morocco, Egypt, Grenada, Barbados, Bolivia, and Nicaragua, in addition to her extensive work here in the United States. Melissa has the unique experience of being able to say she's taught every grade level from pre-K to adult. She's an active member of the National Science Teaching Association, the AIAA, and has served on, among others, the Aerospace Advisory Board and the National Middle Level Science Teachers Association. Her passion for space education was flamed when she was selected an Educator Ambassador for NASA's MAVEN mission. We are grateful to know such a passionate STEM educator, and we know that you will appreciate this interview with Melissa as much as we do. Stay tuned.
Welcome, Melissa Sleeper. I'm so glad to finally get you on the books and get our appointment so that we could interview you. I have known you for a long time, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience and share a little bit about how you became so involved with aerospace and aerospace education.
Okay, my name is Melissa Sleeper, and currently I'm a seventh grade life science teacher and a high school space education teacher at Holy Trinity Episcopal Academy in Melbourne, Florida. And how I got into space, probably because of a friend of my father's. My father used to design submarines, and he was friends with Scott Carpenter. So Scott Carpenter would come to my house when I was a little girl and hang out with my dad. And I just thought he was the coolest person ever because he could go up into a rocket and he could go down into a submarine. So I just always had the interest of space. I came about being in space education by a really long route because I am a career changer. I did use Landsat imagery in my previous career, so I would say that's kind of space related. I used that to do area frame sampling and setting up crop reporting services. But once I decided to become a teacher, who isn't excited by space? It is a great hook. It is a great way to get people interested, kids in particularly, involved in science. And when I moved to Florida, I live near the Space Coast. I actually live on the Treasure Coast, but it's very close to the Space Coast. It's a great way to get kids engaged in what's going on around them.
Right. Right. Well, let me jump in and for our rookie listeners, kids of a certain age, they don't understand what a big deal the Mercury 7 astronauts were. But Scott Carpenter was one of the 7 original, was he Navy test pilot?
Yes, he was a Navy.
Yeah,
Navy submariner.
Oh,
he
wow.
was a submariner. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, yeah, the young people, they often don't get what a big deal. These guys went through all these tests, but the Mercury 7 were literally rock stars before they ever went to space. So he flew an orbital mission And I believe that was his only mission to space, correct? He was a Mercury astronaut.
Yes, and really, I knew him when he was older, so past that. But I had his picture hanging on my wall in my bedroom since when I was in elementary school.
Very
Um,
cool.
that he had given to me. He was older then, but just the same. I just thought he was just so cool because he
Yes,
did that.
and so you mentioned Landsat. Landsat satellites have been imaging the surface of the Earth for 40 years or more, I believe.
Or yes, uh-huh.
And and what I, my experience with things like Landsat was I went to Iowa one time and they do remote sensing of the cornfields when the shoots first start coming up out of the ground, and they can literally estimate crop yield based
That's
on.
exactly what I did.
So you estimated crop yield based on remote sensing satellite imagery.
Yes, because my undergraduate degree is in agriculture economics and statistics. And my very first job overseas in Morocco was setting up the agriculture crop and livestock service. And we did area frame sampling, which means we divided the country into land use groups, statistically sampled from each land use group using aerial photography. Then that's how we would divide up the country into their land use type. And then we would run a ground truth survey at the same time as the satellite was going over so we could get heat signatures from the plants. And
Wow.
then we could do a map of the rest of the area based on those heat signatures to say, okay, this is all corn, this is all wheat.
Right. That's really cool. Did you go as far as whatever pixel you were looking at on your satellite imagery to go to that place on the ground, or was it more about
Yeah.
sampling and a statistical analysis?
We sampled. So, see, what we did was we took the aerial photography, and that showed us what kind of vegetation was in every area, right?
Mhm.
So then we would statistically sample from each of those areas, then actually go out into the field in a particular field at
Right.
that moment. And when the satellite was going to take a picture, we would say, okay, at this point is corn,
Right.
so that we could make a map of the whole area.
So you could quantitatively derive real world values from your very small, truthful in-person sampling, and then using that as your reference for your satellite.
Yes.
Wonderful. That's such a great application of, well, so many subjects, right? Mathematics, and probability or statistics and the physics and the optics and the imagery. And I think that's just great. And you're using infrared imagery because each plant had its own unique
On
heat.
heat sickness. Yes, exactly.
Fantastic. So
And it was actually a pilot program, and it was so successful that it started out as only a $97,000 project as just a pilot to see if it would work. And by the time I left Morocco, I had written a $17 million program, and it was approved and funded. Yeah.
that's a very, I mean, you talk about how to use space in everyday life. That's just really cool. Is there anything else you could share about, was Morocco the first country that you had lived in outside the US? And if so,
Yes. Uh-huh.
if it was, what was the coolest thing, the most enjoyable thing you remember about living in Morocco?
Well, I call it my honeymoon country because my husband and I had just been married when we went to Morocco. We lived there for almost 4.5 years. And I worked in the Ministry of Agriculture. And what was cool about it, I was the only woman. This is a Muslim country, progressive Muslim country, but I was the only woman. And by the time I left, I actually got to train some data entry people and an economist that was a woman. So it was an interesting transition. I was very young, and I had a lot to learn about living in a different culture, particularly a extremely different culture.
Oh,
So,
wow. Yeah.
you think you make an impact. When I lived in Morocco, this was like years ago, paper, things like Kleenex and toilet paper weren't readily available. So uh, I noticed that people were blowing their nose by putting their finger up against their nostril and then blowing their nose, and that really bothered me. I got a cold, so I got a handkerchief, right? And so I would blow my nose and then fold it up and put it in my pocket. And this one of my counterparts asked me why I was saving it. So who was really the most disgusting? The kids,
Well,
people were
I can,
blowing it out their nose, or me, who
right.
they thought I was saving that. So
Well, I can
just
tell you
learning to
as,
live.
yeah, as someone who ran a lot earlier in my life, and like you do long races or half or full marathons, what you just demonstrated is exactly how runners take care of their business. When you're
Uh-huh.
running, you just, you let it fly. But that's a very interesting story. So, while we're talking about you being, having lived and worked all over the world, I know from your bio, you spent some time in other countries. When you left Morocco, did you come back to the U.S. or did you go to another country?
I went straight to Egypt, and we were in Egypt for 3 years. Hmm.
Wow. Was this before or after? It was probably Reagan. Was it Reagan? Was he president?
Yes,
So it was
Reagan.
after the peace accords with Carter, Sadat, and I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Sadat had already been assassinated. This
Uh,
was after that.
was
Yeah.
Egypt pretty stable when you were there?
No, you end up. Um, I liked Egypt. I like the Egyptians. There's lots to do there, but you live with tension, which I imagine a lot of people in the Middle East are used to.
Hmm.
But to give you an example, you end up not liking yourself very much, but you know that insurance doesn't cover terrorist acts. You know that. So in Egypt, you would park your car in the street, and the admin officer from the Israeli embassy lived in the building next to us. So every night we would look to see where his car was parked, and if it was too close to ours, we'd move it. Now,
Because you're
how
worried
do
about violence against him.
well, you knew it was inevitable. And
Right.
actually, after we left, he was blown up on the road in the Delta. But um, just knowing that you're thinking about your personal property instead of thinking about the violence against the person, you know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
It's
Right.
like you
Right.
become dehumanized in lots of
Or
ways.
at least
That's,
desensitized, right?
the
Desensitized.
tension's always there. So how are you going to deal with it?
Right. That is such a unique perspective. Maybe you could comment on this statement. I didn't leave the country until I was 50, and I think I've been to about 15 or 20 countries now. Everywhere I go, the people are great. Even if I can't stand the government,
Uh-huh.
I've been to China and places like that, but oh my goodness, people are wonderful, right?
Yes, I
I,
agree with that.
I think between the people and their food, right? There's always good food wherever you
Oh
go.
yeah. Morocco,
So
that's my favorite in terms of,
really,
oh
so
yeah.
I never tried camel until I went to Dubai. Did you ever eat camel in the Middle
I've
East?
eaten a lot of strange things
Okay.
everywhere we lived. The kids are always, that's one thing I do bring into the classroom a lot. They are fascinated by my experiences living in other countries and
Right.
things I've seen, things I've eaten. Yeah. And, if you go to a meshwi, that's a big lamb roast. The guest of honor is often given the eyeballs to eat.
Yeah. Well,
And, it
you know
might not be
what?
something I would choose, but if you're the
No.
guest of honor, you eat it.
Well, listen, I'm from the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains and the Cajuns in Louisiana. Some of us are known for eating odd things even here in the US. So
Yes,
I'm
I
okay
know.
with that.
Uh-huh.
So
Good.
let's go. I appreciate you sharing that information about your some of your backgrounds. Is there one other country or place that you live that you thought was particularly enjoyable or memorable?
Oh, I loved them all. I have to say, I really liked the lifestyle in Grenada. I went from a Muslim country. We used to count it by the number of Ramadans. I lived 9 Ramadans in Muslim countries, and then I went to Grenada in the West Indies. Talk
Oh,
about
that's
culture shock. I didn't even own a pair of shorts. And what do you think you're going to wear in the West Indies? I was
probably
used
casual, casual, super
very.
casual,
I
beach
mean,
clothes.
plus the difference between dry heat too in the desert, the Sahara, to very heavy, humid heat. But Grenada was interesting because it was we'd had an intervention there, and it was a few years after the intervention, and
Oh,
Ronald Reagan
yes.
actually came to visit while we were there. So he got on stage, and 3/4 of the island population was there to greet him. And everybody had shirts, and I still have mine, my T-shirt with his image on it, and it says, "God, country, Ronald Reagan. You got here just in time."
That's
And
fantastic.
meanwhile, the American press is calling it, we invaded. And it's a national holiday, Intervention Day. They don't
Right.
call it an invasion. And buildings were painted with KGB behave, God bless United States, we love you, America. And you know, other countries I lived in, they liked us mostly, but not like they did then.
Right.
So
Now, am I correct? The Clint Eastwood movie, is it Heartbreak Ridge, was a fictional adaptation of the Grenada events?
might have been. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever watched
Well,
it.
the my understanding was, yeah, the Grenada was, some Cuban military
Yes, yes.
invaded the
Uh-huh.
island, and it was really the Americans repelling the Cuban invaders.
That is correct.
Yes.
But like anytime you impose a lot of socialism in um, Caribbean countries, they have a problem anyway with predial larceny. You have to remember, I worked in the Ministry of Agriculture there. And so theft of your crop is your biggest problem.
Ah,
It is because of the Rastafarian religion, where the earth provides and they don't look at it as stealing.
right.
So they would sleep in the field with their crop, but with the form of government was there that was controlling all of the goods and services coming in and out. Literally, you would have stores with no food on the shelves, none, zero. You couldn't get any. We were lucky if we got a box of cornflakes once every 6 months, literally.
Wow.
And my husband was with the Department of State, so the embassy would bring in 6 months of worth of food for us. We had to order it, so you had to plan what you were going to eat for 6 months. And then they provided us a generator and refrigerators to store things. But and of course we paid for the food, they just shipped it in. So that was interesting to live like that, and also
Uh,
without water, because we didn't have water from about February to maybe September, October. So they would bring in one tanker every other week to fill up our cistern, and we would take showers with a camp shower. And I
that's
mean, I lived like that for months. So
so basically you're a world traveling pioneer. So,
oh, yeah. So when kids tell me, well, I don't have the latest or greatest of this, or I don't have that, I said, you have no idea. Because
yeah,
I would
I
come back to the United States and go into a grocery store, and there's a whole aisle of cereal. I
right.
had a problem choosing which kind. There's
Right.
too many
You know,
choices.
you'll resonate with this. Students today, I say things like, "Let me put it in contrast for you, kids. There's a billion people out there that don't have clean drinking water, and you're sitting here in the AC complaining about the speed of the internet." All right, you're complaining that your video games are lagging in an air-conditioned room. I
Uh-huh.
said you have what we call first world problems. So,
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
let's get back into the space. So right now you teach seventh grade life science and then you teach high school space education. Tell
That's
us
new
about
this year.
I want to know in the second half of our interview here, I want to know really about two things. One, what do you do with space in the classroom? And then I know you do an enormous number of professional activities outside the classroom. So let's start quickly with your class. What is your high school space education class like?
Well, I don't know because this is going to be the first year of my high
Mm,
school. Mainly because I do so many space related things that
right,
they decided I needed to have a class. I had an after school science club, and that's where we did the small sat and the CubeSat program. So I was already doing stuff like that. Plus, in the past, I've done Martian greenhouse program where my students developed a prototype greenhouse for Mars, and including designing the hydroponic system and wind turbines with different kinds of blades to turn in different kinds of atmospheres. I partnered with an engineer from Lockheed Martin for that, and my students presented their work at the Mars Society
right.
conference.
Did you also do Plant the Moon Challenge?
I do plant the moon. See, I'm teaching life science, so I can
Right.
get that in. I have done
Yeah.
plant the moon or plant Mars for many years, and this year we won 2 out of the 4 middle school um, uh, in Florida, in the state of
Well,
Florida.
it makes sense with your agriculture background that this is low hanging fruit for you. No pun intended, but that's the easy. It seems right in your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, it really is, and it actually brought me back into agriculture more. And
Yeah.
I also got involved with Nourish the Future, and that too reawakened since I'm now teaching basically life science. When I made a career change to a private school 2 years ago, oh, well, this will
Right.
be my third year. That's when I started teaching just life science. So I had to find ways to bring space into it. So, yes.
Do you know? Number one, were you at the ISDC International Space Development Conference in June in Orlando?
Yes, I was.
Did you happen to hear the talk by Adam Williams? Uh,
No, I didn't. I'll have to write it down
He,
to look
he's
it up.
it was a space ambassador track. He gave it on Saturday, and the reason I mentioned it is he is getting his PhD basically on how do you make the lunar regolith more suitable for growing agricultural crops, food crops.
Oh, I've done this enough years that I can tell you what add-ins work, what add-ins don't work. And since I became involved with Nourish the Future, which is an agricultural organization, and they provided me with all kinds of soil testing kits and things like that. We actually do a lot of testing. We compare it to Earth. We talk about the difference between regolith. I've actually um, managed to get a hold of all of the separate components of regolith so they can see all the different things that they use to
Right.
make the regolith simulant. So we do a whole big study on that in my life science
That's
class.
very cool. So Adam is getting his PhD. He uses a lot of he uses horse manure versus human for pathogens problems,
Yes, so
but
yeah.
he's a worm guy, right? Lots of worm work. So what
We
I
use
would
worms too,
yeah,
and we
what
use worm casings.
yeah, what I would share with you is because of your proximity to Orlando, I
Uh-huh,
actually took my sixth grade Earth space class to Exolith and did a tour of the facility. That
uh-huh.
might be a nice little trip for your kids that's very close to you that you could do. Because for our audience, we interviewed one of the young ladies that worked at Exolith a couple of years ago, but Exolith is a company that spun out of UCF and they make really pretty good high fidelity lunar and Martian regolith. And now they have a pit, a big pit where you can hook up rovers and test them in lunar regolith. And they unload like 6/7 of the weight of the rover. They have a crane system so you can, as if the vehicle is on lunar gravity.
Oh,
So
that's
in lunar
cool.
gravity.
Uh-huh. Well, there's a new program too called Build the Moon. The
I
Build the Moon
just signed up
Challenge.
for that webinar today.
Um, I did it as the pilot this year, and the only thing I didn't like about it was that a month isn't really enough time to cure the bricks because they won't let you heat the bricks.
Really?
So yeah. So if I don't know, I'm gonna sign up and see if they're still only giving you a month to do the bricks, but you need longer, especially if you're fooling around with the different types of it's a lot of chemistry, which is good. The
Yes.
kids really enjoyed it. They
Well,
really had fun, and we had to come up with ways to test the strength of the lunar regolith and
right.
things.
So for our audience, Plant the Moon Challenge, you used regolith and then you modified it or augmented it to make it more suitable for growing plants. I actually combined Tomato Sphere and Plant the Moon Challenge one year together.
Uh-huh.
And then Build the Moon Challenge, it appears to be you are using regolith to build structures that might be suitable for protecting, astronauts. So very cool. Let me ask you this. So it sounds like your space education class will be project based, very
Always.
multidisciplinary, and it should be a lot of fun. Actually, it sounds like
I
it's
hope
going to be a
so.
lot of fun.
Yeah, have the advantage of being in a private school, so I don't have to be lockstep in a curriculum, and I can move things around. But we do follow the state standards, so I
Right.
am following the state standards for astronomy. But I'm the space exploration part and all of that stuff is going to be very enhanced in my class. There's going to be a lot more, and we
Right.
are going to do the Harvard Smithsonian Youth Astronaut when we study stars. So we'll do a little bit of astrophotography, like
All
the
right.
image behind me.
Yeah, perfect transition. So, for those of you that might watch the video version of our podcast interview on our YouTube channel, Aerospace and Innovation Academy, what we see is that Melissa and I are really rocking the blue and red theme today, right? She is rocking the red, and I'm rocking. So we're basically like hot and cold stars today. So speaking of astrophotography, share a little bit about what your students or what you and your students have done behind you.
Okay, we participate in the Harvard Smithsonian Youth Astronaut Program, which the students sign up for, and you get a series of lessons where you teach them how to control telescopes. Actually, they don't so much control it as they ask it to take images of certain parts of the sky at certain times or certain space celestial objects that they want to take a picture of. And then they use the same imaging processing software that was used on the Cassini project to process images. And behind me is a nebula, the Trifid nebula that one of my students processed. So you can ask the telescopes to take pictures of an area with 3 different colored lenses, so then you can put them on top of each other and get natural color. And it's not as easy as it sounds. You can't just drag it over and put it on. You got to find the stars in the same points in it. It's a little bit more complicated, but or they do have features where you can colorize it essentially. And this is one where she colorized it, but that's all the dust of the nebula.
Right.
But she was able to bring it out because she went into, you can really distant objects, you can use sine or log distance so that it brings you out to it, brings you closer to it in order to process.
That's very cool. I think about remote sensing, some of our best remote sensing imagery, our satellites, they do something called hyperspectral imagery, where you can take one pixel, but you can get information about different wavelengths from that pixel, right? So
Yes.
that's very cool. All right. So I believe you are also a solar system ambassador, and you are a Well, I can only think of about 4 organizations you're involved with, but I'll let you share those with the audience. Let's begin with your solar system ambassador and maybe a little bit about that work. We know we want to just mention LSI, AIAA, and probably some more, but let's start there. Tell us about the solar system ambassador program.
Okay, the Solar System Ambassador Program, we are like a speakers bureau for NASA JPL. We're volunteers. You have to be selected, but you go if they don't have an astronaut or some real famous person to come and speak to them, they might ask us to come and give a talk. So I give talks at, libraries and environmental centers and at star parties and STEAM camps or STEAM fests. I might run activities or a booth. I also do similar work for the Aldrin Family Foundation as an ambassador with their giant Mars or moon maps. And but it all started because I was selected as a MAVEN, which is the Mars Atmospheric and Volatile Evolution Project for NASA. When they sent an orbiter around Mars, that's really how I got started with these little side things. And I got to go to the actual launch, and I filmed a podcast for teachers on how to use that mission in their classroom at Kennedy, so at Kennedy Space Center. It was housed there until that office was closed down. Then it was housed in Colorado, but I'm not even sure it's around anymore, that particular podcast. But
Fantastic.
I also am on the advisory board for NASA Eclipse, on the Educator Advisory Board, and in that function, we help design lessons and review little short video clips, because I like to use lots of times very short video clips explain something better in the classroom than I can. So, and these kids need to have more technology involved anyway. So they have a plethora of space related videos that I use in my classroom, but I also help review them. We help come up with the topics that should be covered. So I've been on that board for quite a few years.
Right. Well, I'll say this, as an educator, I don't have any problem. I have a library of 3 to 5 minute videos on a number of topics. And as you said, that length of video is short enough where the kids will stay focused on it. And you can also pause it and use it as I find that there's so much good content, right? Why would I
Mhm.
ever try to explain string theory, just me talking at them, where I can bring out some great visuals? So I totally agree with that.
And students can create their own videos for that site with a stoplight challenge. Or if you participate in their Earth Day programs, my students have done both live and pre-recorded videos on activities to do for Earth Day or on Earth Day related topics for a few years now. I have the
Well,
kids create them and then they're
right.
uploaded at the site for Earth Day.
Well, since you do that anyway, then I should tell you there's a Khan Academy competition about creating a student creating a video to explain a concept. And it comes with like a $250,000 college scholarship, but the
Wow.
teacher gets, I think, 50K and the school gets 100K. If you're having your kids make videos to explain different science content, I recommend you go ahead and enter the Khan Academy. I mean, let's
I'll have
face
to
it.
look that one up.
Yeah,
Because NASA, you just get it on the site. That's what you
right.
get. Yeah.
No, I mean, you're already doing the work. Let's put in for the prize. So,
Yeah.
um, all right, very cool. So, I know a couple of things we share are LSI. I believe you're a Limitless Space Institute ambassador. Um, is there anything you'd like to share about what you're doing there or what you found most interesting there?
Oh, I was just trained this summer, and literally everything was fascinating. The places we visited, to see the cutting edge, what's going on at LSI, and to see the future of space travel and the new methods of propulsion. We were at Venus Aerospace
I love that place. I love
just
those,
after they had the test,
the rotating detonating engine.
and it worked.
I
You know,
know.
they had a successful test for that. And so it's just amazing to think that in the near future, within the next 5 years, people will be able to travel from Los Angeles to Japan in an hour.
Yes.
It,
Plus, let's be honest, Melissa, possibly one of the coolest CEO names you'll ever hear is Sassy Duggleby, right?
oh yes, I agree with you. And
She's
the whole,
cool.
and she is way cool, and the whole feel and the
Yes.
community they built there.
I love
And
that company.
oh,
I
I
was
do
going to
too.
mention it, but you beat me to it. I love Venus and the
Oh, they are
fact
a
that,
great company.
and you know, listened to a podcast of her recently, and she said, you know, we took a lot of the kids that burned out at SpaceX and Virgin Galactic, but they have this family first policy, right? They're like, we're
Yeah,
going to do
you
great
have
things, but you need to be home at dinner with
home
your
for
family.
dinner. That's their motto. And they carry it through everything. And you can tell just by walking around and taking a tour. They have bobbleheads on everybody's desk, or one of those little, what are those pop creatures that are attuned to whatever the person is interested in, and they gift them to each other for projects. And of course, the Japanese Scotch story too. That all that they sign the bottles after they've had a successful test for something.
Yeah.
They all drink a shot and then sign the bottle, and they have a whole wall of all their successes. I
Yeah.
mean, just little things like that
They
that
have a
build,
good culture, right?
yes,
Yeah.
build culture and how they get along. Yeah.
I'm so glad that, yeah, you and I, we've done a lot of similar things, and I'm really I think our takeaways there are lining up really nicely. It had a great culture. They're doing remarkable, you know, engineering, and I even heard the story about, you know, they lived in Japan, and she was
Yes.
worried about, you know, getting back, and it was
Uh-huh.
great.
That's
So
why they have the Japanese Scotch. But
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yes, exactly.
all right,
Axiom, we were at Axiom too, and we happened to be in go to Axiom the day that they docked with the International Space Station. So we got to go to control and watch them as we were at the mission control at Axiom when they were offloading things from the capsule and stuff onto the International Space Station. So that was really cool to be involved in that. And of course, the spacesuit stuff was really fascinating, but we had to sign the NDA, so I can't really go into it. But it was
right.
like really incredible.
I would love to, you know, I think you and I could partner on a project, and if we could get to the ear of Cam Gafarian for about 60 seconds, I think we could do some good. I would love to do some work there. Let me ask you this. Tell me about the CubeSat project you did with your kids, because I know it recently flew. And what are your hopes? You know, so as we're moving toward the end of our interview, I want to know about your CubeSat project. I want to know what are the most exciting projects you see in the near future, and so let's start there.
Okay, well, the CubeSat project really was influenced by you. You were doing all of this really cool stuff with CubeSats, and I kept going to the education conference, but I didn't know really how to get involved in it and start it without a lot of funds. So Teachers in Space advertised a workshop in New Mexico that was free from teachers from New Mexico and Maine through their space consortium. So I sent it to our space consortium and said, why aren't we doing this in Florida? And so he said, I'll send you. So I got sent last year, and that's in the week that I was there. I learned how to build one. I went up, we launched them with a high altitude balloon. So we had that experience. And we also took them up in gliders to collect data which was an incredible experience. I'd never been in a glider before, especially when you spend all this time learning about thrust and what you need to stay up in the air, and you're up in the air with no engine for 45 minutes. I didn't know whether to be excited or terrified, but you take advantage of all the opportunities you can. And that was it was fabulous. But what was really good about it is they also gave me all the equipment to build one with my students. And so we had to design our own experiment, and which we did. And then the kids built it. I did not. They designed the experiment. We packaged it up, and they did give us support the whole time. Like I could email. We had meetings every couple months to make sure we were all on track. And we had a schedule. And then we packaged it up and we sent it to them to launch. Now, the downside is the kids didn't get to follow the balloon and all that stuff, which I think is half the fun. But we had 2 false starts, but eventually it flew, and then they send it back to us. So now we have the data. They also sent us a video of the whole launching and videos from the balloon and the recovery and everything. So we actually can visually watch everything that happened. But it came back after we were out of school, so the kids haven't really even seen all this stuff yet. And we sent up a life science experiment. So we sent up seeds that we had treated with plasma and seeds that were not treated with plasma. So our experiment isn't over yet, because we want to see if that had an effect, because there's so much plasma in space. We want to see the effect of it. Roughs up the seed coat, allows the plants, the seeds, to absorb water more quickly, and they should germinate more quickly, which is important in space because you usually have a shorter growing season. So right. Anyway, we'll see how that turns out. And we also have been able to get some grants, so we have additional materials, and now we're going to go to the next step and try to find other ways to launch them.
I plan on helping you.
Starting out with not knowing what to do, it was a good way for a beginning teacher to learn how to do it, I think. To use the Arduinos and the FITs, so the kids could do the diagrams, the wiring diagrams and everything. They had to learn how to do all of that, and it had to be what they did, not what I did, or it couldn't fly. So yeah, it was good.
I respect very much the opportunities that you provided for your students, right? You're definitely crushing it. I think one thing that you and I can do together is a high altitude balloon mission here in Florida. The hard part are the swamps, the wildlife areas, Lake Okeechobee, the Caribbean, all the places
where everything.
And I went to Venus, Florida in June, which is on the west side of Okeechobee, because the simulation said we should be able to recover before it gets to the Atlantic Ocean. But we broke our own altitude record, and we got over 32 kilometers. We got 106,000 feet, and and it ended up over a kilometer, less than a mile out in the Atlantic, and we lost that one. But I really, there's some new tech that's coming out from the guys I work with in Indiana, and they're going to use microbits, so like all the student payloads will talk to the radio, and you'll get your data real time. So that's an advantage for us in Florida, that we end up losing so much hardware with our terrain. But if you would like, I would love to do a balloon mission with you. Your kids build some payloads, and we'll roll in there, and we will launch and do our best to recover it. And I think that would be a fun way for our kids to play together.
Yes, I agree.
All right. I agree. Well, let's see, so much good that you've done. So I feel like there's about 4 teachers I know in the country that I think are the best, and the impact that you guys have, and you are definitely one of them, on all of these thousands of students is it's going to be it's going to remain a lot longer, in time than our, the time we have with the kids. So I'm very glad that you were here today. So here's my final question. We've talked a lot about the process that you've used, the types of programs and the involvement. But if there's a young teacher, let's say, or a young student that really wants to do some of the things that you're doing, Melissa, what is your sort of parting advice for those that are coming behind you?
Well, first, they have to find their passion. I think that's the most important thing. You have to have a passion for what you're doing. You also have to never stop learning yourself. And you have to model that for your students, that you're always wanting to learn something new and try something new. And you have to be prepared to fail forward. You're not going to be successful. You don't give up. You have to have perseverance to keep applying. What's the worst thing can happen is somebody says no, and you just keep applying, or you keep looking for new opportunities or new things to do, and accept that failure is going to be part of that, and people aren't going to always be supportive of your goals. Which for me is to provide opportunities for my students and to bring wonder, joy, and discovery into every classroom in the United States. That's what I try to do with my kids. They don't know what's out there unless you find it and bring it to them. And you never know your impact. And I'll give you an example. I want to say 20 years ago, I taught a student in 5th grade. And she was a really good student, interested in space, wanted to know all about the Bose-Einstein condensate when she was in 5th grade. So that gives you an idea of the type of student she was. That was when it was first really being discovered. Kind of kept in touch with me. Every once in a while, I would hear something from her. Well, I heard from her last year. She's in graduate school at Harvard, getting her doctorate in as an astrophysicist. She discovered an asteroid, and she named it after me. It's in this whole process of being named. So the name's been proposed. I had to fill out information on her forms, and that's why she told me. But really, I haven't seen this kid in 20 years. So you just never know the impact of a teacher. Giving them opportunities, things they will remember, that's what is important about education. Yeah, I can teach them all the formulas. I can teach them all that kind of stuff, but you have to touch them in different ways, and giving them opportunities and chances and making them believe in their own possibilities, and that
Right.
it's possible. Anything's possible.
Well, much like space, I find you very inspiring, right? And I'm really glad that you had some time to be on our podcast. The next time that we circle back, when we come back in a year or so, we'll do this again. We'll talk more about AIAA and your new class, and I'm sure there'll be 5 other new things we can discuss. But Melissa Sleeper, thank you so much for your time today. And I had a blast. I could go on for a lot longer, but we probably need to rest here for a while. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kevin. I enjoyed it too.